Vaccine progress slows, and we start to wonder how many Americans are willing, if not eager, to roll up their sleeves. And as we've seen in other states, Republicans and Democrats in Lansing at vast odds over election laws. Today is Sunday, May 9th, 2021, and this is Flashpoint. Hi, welcome to Flashpoint and a very happy Mother's Day. Big Detroit news breaking Friday afternoon. Police Chief James Craig set to retire after 8 years as chief. Talk of his political future is already percolating, but of more immediate concern is who will lead the department now at such a critical moment in American law enforcement. We expect to learn more tomorrow. But today, let's dial in on the shot. As the pandemic locked us down, we clung to the promise of the COVID vaccine. That was the key to getting back to normal life. And yet, while more than 30% of Americans are now fully vaccinated, demand keeps falling, and we start to wonder, what's the ceiling on vaccinations? How many people are just going to say no, especially with the misinformation about the vaccines still pouring forth from way too many people who know better? This morning, two Wayne State doctors who served as principal investigators on both the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines, are they worried about people selling the vaccine short? Also today, we're going to dig into the efforts in Lansing to reform Michigan's voting laws. Is it an effort to ensure our elections are reliably and efficiently run, or is it an effort at voter suppression? Two state senators are here to talk about that. I'll also let them weigh in on the newest revelations about the governor's pandemic travels. All that and a new beat for Vicki Thomas today on Flashpoint. Well, as you know, Governor Whitmer has now tied Michigan's reopening phases to our vaccination rates. This past week, the rules around masks changed. Once we get to 55% vaccinated, office and workspace rules will change, and so on, right up to 70%. But that 70% figure starts to look very difficult to hit. What to do about vaccine hesitancy? We're going to talk about it now with two doctors from Wayne State who played critical roles in the development of the Moderna and Johnson & Johnson vaccines. Dr. Paul Kilgore is an associate professor of pharmacy practice at WSU, and Dr. Marco Zervos is the assistant dean of global affairs. Gentlemen, I'm so glad to have you both here. Dr. Zervos, let me start with you and just give me your general thoughts on what you're hearing and what you're seeing in the reasons behind people who right now are still very hesitant to roll up their sleeves and get this vaccine.
Well, there really are two or three groups of people. They're the people that were very enthusiastic about getting the vaccine and were waiting in line to get it and pushing us to get the vaccine. There's those that have questions about it, and it's understandable to have questions about the vaccine, and then those that are outright hesitant. You know, in terms of the people that have questions, they have questions about safety. They have questions about, has it been tested long enough to be used? Those that have outright hesitancy, you know, we also understand that, and some of the reasons around that are mistrust of health systems. Sure. With some of the things that have happened in the past.
Dr. Kilgore, when people say to you that this has been so rushed, we're used to waiting years for a vaccine, and this one, almost by definition, has to be less reliable and more dangerous given how quickly it came to us. How do you handle that, given you were someone who worked on these studies?
Yeah, Devin, it's a great question. Actually, over the past several months, I've talked to hundreds of people literally about this same question. So here's what people should know. Back 20, 30 years ago, we would evaluate a vaccine and actually get it approved just by vaccinating in studies, controlled trials, a few thousand people. Now with the COVID-19 vaccines, we've actually, over the past several months, vaccinated millions of people. And actually during the trials, there was over 100,000 people enrolled worldwide. So the safety data that we have on these vaccines is unequivocal. It's unquestionable. These vaccines are very safe. That means the Pfizer, the Johnson & Johnson, and the Moderna vaccines are very safe for adults. We also know they're safe for women, and this has been a really important topic that we wanted to get out information on. Safe for pregnant women. And now we have new data showing that the vaccines are not only safe, but very effective in younger children, teenagers. So good news coming out of the recent studies.
What do you suppose the cases that we've seen with blood clots involving the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the sort of pause that we had, what has that done to the overall confidence that people have in all of the vaccines?
So one of the things that we've seen is that it did actually have an impact. So there was a downturn in vaccination rates. There's no doubt about it. We are seeing an uptick, though, in many locations, and popularity among younger people is now rising. In fact, just yesterday, I was over at Jalen Rose Leadership Academy in Detroit, and I was there seeing young people receiving the vaccine. So that was really encouraging, and that program from the Global Health Initiative at Henry Ford Health System in partnership with Wayne State University is really making an impact on Detroiters.
Dr. Zervos, there's a lot of people who keep pointing out that this is still only these vaccines still only have emergency use authorization. Pfizer has now asked for it to be fully approved. What would the difference be in full approval versus emergency use authorization?
Well, the emergency use means that the efficacy, the importance of the vaccine far outweighs any potential risks. It's gone through extensive clinical trials, over 100,000 people between the three doses of the vaccine. It's been used in, I think there have been over 250 million doses that have been given in the United States. So the full approval happens after there's more real world experience with the vaccine, which has happened, and we anticipate there'll be a full approval. But I think, besides the knowledge that we have that the vaccine is safe, we know that it's very effective, and we know that COVID remains a very serious problem, and we know that COVID can put somebody in the hospital and people can die from it. So that's I think the balance that we need to keep in mind.
Dr. Kilgore, we are also starting to, I think, become a little bit more realistic about the fact that we're very likely going to need booster vaccines after about a year or so. People are already so fatigued by this entire ordeal. I worry about, if we start talking about booster shots being necessary, what that does to the appetite for vaccines.
So it's one step at a time, Devin, and I think one thing that people should realize is the vaccines that we have now do have effectiveness against the variants. For example, the UK, South African variant, those variants can be covered by the vaccine to a large extent. Now, we also want to make sure that in the case that we have a new variant that is not well covered by these vaccines that we have now, we want to have in our armamentarium that booster dose, which would cover new variants. And that's being done right now. In fact, later this month, we anticipate starting a new study of a variant booster vaccine. But we're going to take it one step at a time. No guarantee that we're going to need it, but we want to make sure that we have it just in case.
And Dr. Zervos, that these variants, that's another big part of the problem we have of those thinking that they can just opt out and us thinking that it's okay if you don't want to get the vaccine. The people who don't get the vaccine allow the variants to proliferate, and the new variants that may come along might not be covered by the vaccine that I and so many others have received, right?
Right. We have at least 4 different variants. We have the UK variant, which is very predominant, spreading very quickly in Michigan and other states. We have other variants. We have the South African. We've had the Brazil strain. We have other variant strains that are spreading. And if we don't do a better job of vaccinating the public, we're going to get more variant strains. We're going to get more spread of those strains, and some of them could end up being more contagious. Some of them could even potentially be more deadly. So we got to get these vaccines around. Dr. Kilgore, Dr. Zervos, you are both part of the amazing team that has really brought about something we've never really seen before in answering a pandemic like this across the world. Thank you so much for that, and thanks for the time today. Thank you.
Thank you.
You bet. Back with more on Flashpoint in just a minute.